Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Raynday Gaming. My name is Raynday and I am ecstatic to bring to you the top 4 best flanks in Paladins. I know this is kind of funny because Paladins only has 4 flanks right now, so it isn't a traditional top 5. But what I'll be doing in this video is taking some time to actually rate the competitive value of each of the flanks in Paladins, so you as a beginner or you as someone who's playing a lot of ranked can understand exactly where these flankers fall in the tier list and make a better decision on who you want to bring into the next match. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 4 on the list, the least valued flanker right now at this moment, is Skye. Now that may not come as a surprise to all of you, and it certainly doesn't to me, but I know Skye is notorious for being overvalued by newer and beginner players and notorious for being undervalued by very experienced players. I think Skye honestly falls somewhere in the middle. She could do a great job against Kinessa. She's got really good counters. She could definitely take down lower health champions and other flankers very well, especially if she gets the first shot, the first poison bolts go onto a target. She could do well in the DPS department. She's also got a couple of buffs, but from what I've seen, people have not trusted her yet on LAN or in competitive, and I think that means that she's at the bottom of this list for now. I could imagine Skye jumping up very soon, maybe with one more buff, maybe with one more tweak, and maybe with just a little bit more practice. Sometimes it takes a pro to do something big on the big stage for people to say, okay, Skye's viable, let me put some energy into Skye, and then that could change the difference. She could be number 1 next week. I have no idea, but right now she is not valued, and let me tell you why. What it really comes down to is safety. There are a lot of other flankers in this game that could do the exact job, get the exact damage off, and survive longer than Skye and do it with less pressure on surviving. Essentially, they could have more of a buffer to mess up and be able to escape back out of danger than Skye does. Really, if Skye misplays one moment, one bad stealth, one bad smoke screen in the wrong direction, people can pick her off so easily, and it's almost not worth the risk. What do you really gain by choosing a Skye over a Buck if you're trying to harness or you're trying to chase down a Kinessa? Obviously, the Kinessa will get melted by Skye if things go well, but for the rest of the fights, maybe Skye really is lackluster, whereas Buck can provide some more HP for the fight. He has some healing. He can still jump on and aggress on the Kinessa and burst her down almost just as quickly. To be honest, I think this is why Skye doesn't get played a lot, because the risk isn't worth the reward. You can still get the reward from a lot of other champions that make you take less risk, and until that risk reward kind of ratio or meta shifts for Skye, I think she's going to be seen as one of the least picked and least valued flankers, not only in Paladins in the ranked scene, but in the competitive esports scene as well. The other reason Skye doesn't do well in the competitive scene, such as at LANs or big tournaments that we run at high res, is because it takes a lot of coordination to deal with the Skye, but when you do have that coordination, she really suffers, because once she's caught out, she has no way to get out of that fight if she's already used her stealth. Buck can leap, Buck can heal, Evie can blink away, Androxus can another step away, use a reversal. They all have tools that even when in the line of fire allow them to survive for a bit. Skye does not have that. She's pretty much pure damage with a little bit of sneakiness added on top of that. And when you go into the factor that everyone on a competitive team is communicating via voice chat, and it's so much easier to say, oh, Skye's behind us, they could all focus fire Skye down much easier and accomplish the goal of killing her versus the other flankers. Whereas in single queue games or in beginner games, it's a lot easier for Skye to run rampant on people and not have that coordination. So that's why you see Skye doing really well earlier on, and as people get higher and higher levels, she starts to drop off. All right, moving on to number 3 of the best flanks in Paladins, that's gonna go to my boy Buck. Now, a lot of people may say that Buck is the best flanker, and I wouldn't blame you. Buck is great, and a lot of these top 3 flankers that I'm going to discuss can interchange depending on the meta and what's needed, and also the playstyle. There's a lot of people, such as Elvenpath. He's a pro from Russia, one of the bigger streamers and community figures in Russia. He plays our game, loves it, and absolutely loves Buck. He's on D69. They were a finalist at the Paladins Invitational, so he just makes that champion work, and he'll make his Buck probably better than a lot of people's Androxuses or Eevees. But I will say that Buck lacks a few things that I think Androxus and Evie really bring to the table. Buck does damage, he can get out safely, he's got self-healing, he's got a lot of damage on his ultimate, which resets his cooldowns as well, so it gives him an extra escape, some extra healing, and some more damage like I mentioned earlier. But the thing is, he does have a big body, and when he commits onto a target, although he's a big presence, he could easily be focused down as well. It's not like he has any immunity frames, right? There are moments where Buck can jump on you, say a Shaolin, and even though you get him down to low health, Shaolin can use planted and just kill Buck. That is one of the benefits of being a Shaolin in this meta, but also one of the negatives of Buck. He doesn't have that real safety net that some of the other flankers, the top 2 flankers, do have in case things get bad. Like, he doesn't have that red button that he could push. Okay, we're all having that nuclear meltdown, hit the red button. Buck does not have that. He's got a blue button, he could heal, he's got a lot of great things, but the issue for him is that he does not have that ultimate I can guarantee I will get out of this safely if I play my cards right and if I am the most skilled player in the world. And that is the value that those other 2 flankers bring in their kits and in this meta specifically. The other thing that I think makes Buck a little weaker is due to the strength of Cauterize, the item that allows you to mitigate healing. It actually impacts Buck's sustain in 1v1 fights quite a lot. His recovery, his Q ability, allows him to heal up to 1,000 damage in a fight, and that could be 2-3 shots by an Androxus that could be 1v1ing him. That means that he's got to hit 9 shots instead of 6, or whatever the number actually is, to make up for the 1,000 Buck is just healed, and that's a pain in the butt. However, later on, Buck starts to get countered by Cauterize, whereas Androxus and Evie, although yeah, they can get countered by Cauterize, that won't really affect their 1v1 potential against you or against the target that they're bursting down, and that is a little bit of another reason why I think that Buck is 3rd and Andro and Evie happen to be 1 and 2 in my eyes. But in which order, Raynday? Which order do they fall? Okay, it's time to get into the number 2 best flanker in Paladins right now in this meta based on the competitive tier list, and that is, in my opinion, Androxus. Androxus is pretty much the OG flanker. He's the god that has been in this game for so long, and people have always taken to the highest level they could. We've had some of the best players in Paladins, thinking of Stolzy, Cusscutie, Perdo, all of these people playing Androxus at the highest level, practicing him, and really making this champion their own. And this has made a lot of names for people. You talk about Z1 Unknown as well, somebody on Eager who kind of came up in the scene just by playing such a good Androxus. He is a carry in many ways, not only for the game, but maybe for a career. And he definitely deserves to be number 2 on this list. But there's a couple of reasons why I think A, he's above 3 and 4, and why B, I think he's not quite yet up to par with Evie at number 1. Now, let's talk about what he does bring to the table really quickly though. He's got that immunity, which I discussed. That's so important. If you're down in a fight and you're out, he could throw down your reversal and absorb damage. You stall for your teammates, you stall for yourself, you maybe make them waste a big ability that they think is going to hit you, and you could even counter Shaolin. The example where Buck dies, Androxus just reversals it and then can shoot it right back into Shaolin, force him on the defensive if he hits his target, which is based only on mechanical skill and the ability for someone to play this champion at the highest level. So let's assume that at the highest level you can do that. You get your dashes again. That means you can dash into a fight, into somebody that you want to flank, and if things go wrong, use your reversal, immune any damage happening to you that's from the direction you're facing, and then hit your target and immediately dash out. This almost guarantees that a great Androxus will stay alive even if the fight doesn't go his way, and that is what makes him so powerful. That's what puts him ahead of Buck, because Buck, not only can he get countered by Cauterize, but he just doesn't have that getaway free card and that immunity frame to stall when things go bad, not only for himself but for his team. Of course, his ultimate is fantastic. It's a game changer. You could solo ult a big tank, you could solo ult a huge flanker, and immediately just in the deal, and you can also apply so much grouped up pressure to clumped up targets. Whereas Buck, he's great, and you know, obviously Skye is great, but they're single target damage champions. Even when Buck ults, he can't hit more than one target, and Skye, although her time bomb is very effective at moving people away from the point, it's often too slow for people who are paying attention to get caught in it. They probably will use their movement abilities, hide around a corner, or escape far enough away from the blast radius that they won't take that much damage. And Androxus, he can just do it all himself. He's a great carry, one of the best in Paladins, and definitely the number 2 flanker in my opinion in this game. At both DreamHack and the Paladins Invitational at HRX, we saw Androxus have incredible land performances, and so he's a champion that really only gets better when he gets into the higher echelon of play and the more impactful games that he's in a competitive esports scene. So I have to put him high on down this list because he is always going to be a go-to, always going to be a feature unless something drastically changes in his kit. And last but not least, it's time for the best flanker in Paladins, Evie. All jokes aside, y'all, I really do believe that Evie is the best flanker right now in Paladins, and I'm going to break it down in two simple reasons. One, she's got everything that I mentioned Androxus had. She has the immunity, she has the ice block, she's got the mobility, and often, and in many ways, I think a stronger mobility than Androxus because her blink and her soar allow her to escape, so she can get into a fight with blink and soar out to safety if things don't go well. She almost has too much mobility that I don't think anyone can even compare to her on the mobility scale, and that's one of the best and most important aspects to have as a flanker. So that's why I think she's number one, regardless almost of the amount of damage she did. But what would a flanker be without the ability to do damage? And that's what Evie can do, almost better than anyone as well. And the most important aspect of her damage is the type of damage that it is, and this current meta and this competitive scene. Because Paladins does not have a plethora of champions yet, such as Smite, who has 78, I think, gods, Paladins, I think, is working at about 20 or 19 champions right now. And one of the most interesting aspects of these champions is that they do different types of damage, and those types of damage are mitigated by different cards or different items in game. So Androxus, Buck, and Skye are all mitigated by Haven, and a lot of other champions in this meta are mitigated by Haven. Cassie, Shaolin, you look at Makoa, you look at Ruckus, all of these champions are mitigated by Haven, and that means that if you take a flanker as well that is mitigated by Haven, everyone on your team can be mitigated by one simple card choice. It's super effective for the enemy team to grab Haven and mitigate all of you. However, if you're able to grab Evie, she does AoE damage. And that AoE damage means that they'd have to pick up blast shields in order to mitigate you. So if somebody wants to pick up blast shields and I'm playing Evie and they want to mitigate my damage, that's cool. But then my other 4 teammates will be able to attack them without any damage mitigation whatsoever. And if they want to go for my 4 teammates, which is a totally reasonable decision, a lot of people make that and say, let me mitigate the most amount of people, they'll pick up Haven, and then Evie goes mitigation free in the fight, which means that I'm doing my full 1,000+ damage on my shots when I land them on you. And that can make a huge difference. When you look at Kinessa or carries like that, towards the end of the game when Haven 3s start getting picked up, she does like 500 damage. I mean, it's ridiculous, a full snipe coming from her, and it's not even hitting for more than a full shot from Cassie's bow. And that just makes you say, huh. But with blast shields or characters who have AoE presence, that usually is not mitigated, and so your damage is astronomically higher and astronomically more impactful to a team fight, not only because it's much more, but because you can hit multiple people as well. Evie can group people up with her ultimate, clump them together, use her staff, and fire off a huge shot that hits 2, 3, even 4 members of the enemy team if she's lucky, and really turn the tide of a team fight just by that. Evie finds herself at the top of this list for one main reason, because of the lack of AoE damage champions to contest her in her role. There are no other flankers who provide AoE damage, and there's only 2 other champions in the entire game that can really match with her on AoE damage, and that being Drogoz and Bomb King. Bomb King takes a masterclass player to pull off the level of damage that Evie does, and Drogoz, due to his recent change, has still had, I think, professional players and the highest level of competitive players wavering on when and where they want to bring the dragon into the fight, despite him having such good presence with his fire spit and his ultimate. Evie's the it girl. She's got the mobility, she's got the damage, she's got the immunity, and she's also got the highest commodity in Paladins, which is AoE damage pressure. And the fact that she brings so much of that to the table, and there isn't a fleshed out champion pool yet to be able to take her off her top spot, she remains as the best flanker in Paladins in my eyes. But you never know, people. I said Ruckus was like the worst tank 3 months ago, and now all of a sudden he was a guaranteed first or second pick at the Paladins Invitational Tournament. You never know how these things will adjust, so you got to keep your eyes on the esports meta. Stay tuned on twitch.tv/PaladinsGame if you want to follow that. We start our casting back up, myself and High-Res Pretty Hair, on that channel for February when the competition begins again. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you joining. I'll be doing the best supports and the best damage champions in the competitive scene soon, so make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss those lists. And as always, remember to never give up, never stop gaming, and I'll see you all next time.